We are Carrie and Josh. We are sharing things that, in our experience, worked for us and could also work for you.
So we have our water that has boiled. We have our cup of sugar that will go in. And we have our 8 tea bags. Now notice on the tea bag, I take off the little tag that goes on there, the tag with the staple. I take that off so that it's not sitting in the water for hours. So again, I'll add the sugar, I'll stir it in to dissolve it, and then I will throw in the tea bags, and those will steep until the pot is cool. Usually I do that in the morning before school, and once I come home from school, sometime before supper or after supper, it's long since done. I've let it sit. I just let it sit all day until I have some time to do it. There's no certain amount of time that I use, and then that's when I make the drinkable kombucha, and this becomes the next fermenting batch. Here is the jar that's been fermenting. Couldn't tell you how long. It's been a while. As you can see, it's been fermenting long enough that, and it's healthy enough that another layer has gone on to the SCOBY in here. So the first job is we take it out. Gotta let all the stuff drip out of it. Put that on a plate. There was an extra little thing hanging around. I think it went to the bottom, though that's okay. So we get that out, and we'll take a cup of that and add it to our tea that's been brewed and is sitting down there. So there we've got our cup of the fermented. And you add that in there, and you want to add that in because it helps get it growing and it helps kill the other bacteria. Next we will take our fermented tea, and down here you can see we've got my glass jar that's got a nice spigot on the bottom, and I like that because what I've noticed is when it comes out the bottom, usually the extra little pieces of SCOBY that like to float at the top, and if I use the spigoted one, that kind of is a way of filtering it out so we don't get that in there. So we just pour in the fermented tea. Now you could actually just leave it like that and you would have the sweet tea flavor, which I always have to save one for my son. He enjoys that flavor the most, so when I take that out I will save a cup for him for today. Otherwise we'll get to the flavoring in a little bit. So I poured the tea that's been chilling today into the jar, and I don't want to put in all of the SCOBY because that would be too much. So what I like to do is I'm going to take off the top layer, because this is the newest layer, so this is they both are pretty healthy since they added on there. So I take the top layer off. Now if you are itching to try brewing your own kombucha, hit me up, let me know, and what I can do is save you this extra SCOBY that's there. I can save that with a cup of the liquid, and you've got your own kombucha starter. So what I'm going to do, take that, put it in the container. Put it in the container, there we go. And that'll float to the top, because what that will do is that will then seal off and kind of create a little bubble. And what I do with this, we just put it in our nice compost bin. Take the rest of the liquid, add it back in. Now this morning when I made it, I didn't measure. So if I look at the level of the liquid in there, could have made more, but that's okay. So the next step is going to be to take a towel and put it on, and then put a rubber band over the towel, drape it over the top, and you want it to be able to breathe, but you don't want it to fall off. So you secure a nice rubber band on there. We'll get a little look here. We've got the fermenting station. I keep my rotation going, so I've got 3 going at a time. So I move this one over, since this will be the next one. Then, so I'm going to do this without spilling it. That one moves over there. And we take the new one. And the new one takes its place in the rotation in the back. And that's how I know which one has been brewing the longest. It helps me not have to mark them and keep them fresh. We don't want to have one sitting for too terribly long, or it gets a little too tart. Last step is flavoring. So you got one of these mesh type plastic bags that you get when you buy produce. Take that, fill it up with, I don't know, a handful of, or not a cup. Well, it's probably pretty close to a cup. I think I filled it up pretty full this time. This, I use frozen blueberries. Frozen fruit I found works really well because as it thaws in there, it tends to give off more juice once it's frozen than if you use fresh ones. They are still holding in the juice. Now, blueberry's been the easiest for flavoring, but we also have to put our cap back on. Blueberry's been the easiest for flavoring. We just have it in a nice glass spigot. So I probably do blueberry the most, but it's not my favorite. My favorite is a cup of cherry juice, usually the sweet cherry juice, not tart, and about a 1/4 teaspoon, maybe half a teaspoon of almond extract. And that one's my favorite. It tastes like cherry Coke. I've also done pomegranate juice, a cup of pomegranate juice. I think we've done frozen mangoes. Those are pretty good. They're more fun to eat though. My kids like to eat those, so they don't get to use those very often. One thing you'll notice is onto that jar, you'll notice another SCOBY start to grow. And what you can do if you notice it starting to get too tart, just put it in the refrigerator. That'll slow down the fermenting, because it's still the living organism in there and it will still continue to eat the sugars, especially now the sugars from the fruit. So those are the steps I take. Again, I've got the process down pretty slick. I just boil the water in the morning, go about my day, leave it sit. Whenever I've got time to come back to it. Today it was about 8 hours later, and just start to work on it that way. And I usually do it around supper time when I'm doing the dishes, because I've got all the dishes to clean in between the stuff. But that's how I brew my kombucha. That helps keep my stomach working the way I like it. Helps keep me feeling good. Speaking from experience.